The Amboseli ecosystem doesn't forgive carelessness. Daniel Omondi had learned this across 12 years working as a wildlife veterinarian in Kenya. Every scar on his hands told a story. Every limp he carried was a lesson. But on a Friday morning in November, Daniel learned something that no textbook had ever taught him. Sometimes the animal you saved remembers, and sometimes that memory arrives exactly when you need it most. Daniel was driving the Northern Circuit, conducting routine health assessments on elephant families tracked by conservation teams, when his radio crackled to life. "Daniel, we have a situation. Adult female, visible limp, separated from her herd. Grid reference 327. Daniel turned his Land Rover toward the coordinates. Separated elephants were vulnerable. Injured separated elephants were targets. He found her near a dried riverbed, favoring her left front leg heavily. Even from 50 meters away, Daniel could see the swelling. An old injury, infected, untreated for weeks, maybe months. She was a young adult female, maybe 18 years old, still learning her place in the complex hierarchy of elephant society. Old enough to survive alone for a while, not old enough to do it indefinitely. Daniel approached slowly, engine idling, giving her time to assess him. Elephants had long memories. If she'd had negative experiences with vehicles or humans, this could go wrong fast. But she didn't run. She watched him with intelligent dark eyes, ears spread slightly, not in aggression, but in attention, calculating. Daniel stopped the vehicle 30 meters away and stepped out, medical kit in hand. "Hey, Mama," he called softly. "Let's take a look at that leg." The elephant shifted her weight, trunk lifted, testing the air. Then she did something Daniel had only seen a handful of times in 12 years. She took 3 deliberate steps toward him and sat down, lowering herself to the ground, exposing the injured leg, making herself vulnerable. Permission granted. Daniel's hands were steady as he approached, but his heart was racing. This was trust, real, conscious, calculated trust. He knelt beside her leg and examined the wound. A deep puncture, likely from a broken branch during a territorial dispute or a fall. The entry point had sealed over, but infection had developed underneath, creating an abscess the size of a grapefruit. Without treatment, she'd develop sepsis within days. "This is going to hurt," Daniel said quietly, pulling a scalpel from his kit. "But I promise it'll help." The elephant's eye fixed on him. Daniel made the incision. The abscess ruptured immediately, releasing a flood of pus and blood. The elephant groaned, a sound so deep Daniel felt it in his chest, but she didn't move, didn't pull away, didn't strike. She let him work. For 45 minutes, Daniel cleaned the wound, flushed it with antibiotics, packed it with medicated gauze, and wrapped it in protective bandaging. When he finished, the elephant stood slowly, testing the leg. The pressure was gone. The pain was manageable. The elephant looked at Daniel for a long moment. Then she turned and walked back toward the direction of her herd, limping less now, moving with purpose. Daniel packed his kit, watched her disappear into the acacia trees, and thought, "That's it. That's the moment. The reason I do this work." He had no idea that moment was just the beginning.
"Hey, Mama."
Three months passed. Daniel continued his circuit work, treating injuries, monitoring populations, documenting behavior. The elephant with the abscess became a footnote in his medical log. Success story 347. No follow-up needed. Life moved on. Until the Friday morning when everything stopped. Daniel was conducting a health check on a young bull elephant near the Kimana sanctuary boundary when he heard it. A sound that didn't belong. Voices. Human voices, shouting, panicked. Then gunfire. Not the controlled shots of rangers. These were wild, erratic, the sound of people who didn't know how to handle weapons properly, but had them anyway. Poachers. Daniel's blood went cold. He grabbed his radio. "Base, I have gunfire near the Kamana boundary. Multiple shots, requesting immediate ranger response." "Copy that. Rangers are 20 minutes out. Stay in your vehicle. Do not approach." Daniel looked toward the sound. 20 minutes. In 20 minutes, poachers could kill an elephant, remove the tusks, and disappear. He knew protocol. He knew the rules. But he also knew that hesitation cost lives. Daniel started driving toward the gunfire. Daniel found them near a waterhole. 4 men, armed with rifles and pangas, standing around a collapsed elephant. A bull, maybe 30 years old, shot twice, still breathing but unable to rise. Blood pooled beneath his head where they'd already started cutting into his face to remove the tusks. Daniel felt rage flood his system. He laid on the horn, long, loud. The poachers spun around. For a moment, nobody moved. Then one of them raised his rifle. Daniel had 1 second to realize he'd made a catastrophic mistake. He was alone, unarmed, in a soft-skinned vehicle, against 4 men with guns who had just committed a crime that carried a mandatory sentence and had nothing left to lose. The first shot shattered his windshield. Daniel threw himself sideways, glass raining down. The second shot punched through the door panel 6 inches from his head. Daniel scrambled out the passenger side, using the vehicle as cover. His radio was in the front seat, unreachable. His options? Stay behind the vehicle and hope they didn't circle around before the rangers arrived, or run. Both options ended badly. The poachers were spreading out, flanking. Daniel looked toward the tree line 50 meters away, dense cover, if he could reach it. That's when he heard it. A trumpet call. Loud, close, furious. Everyone froze. An elephant emerged from the acacia trees. Female, young adult, moving fast, left front leg wrapped in filthy, tattered bandages. Daniel's breath stopped. Her. The elephant from 3 months ago. She charged straight toward the poachers, not hesitant, not cautious, pure aggression. The men scattered, stumbling over each other, firing wild shots that went nowhere near her. But the elephant wasn't chasing them. She was positioning herself between Daniel and the armed men, between the threat and the human who had once knelt beside her and made the pain stop. She stopped 20 feet from Daniel, facing the poachers, ears spread wide, trunk raised. A living shield. The poachers regrouped 30 meters away, shouting at each other, trying to decide if they should fight or flee. One of them raised his rifle toward the elephant. Daniel found his voice. "No!" He stepped out from behind the vehicle, into the open, exposed, vulnerable. "You want to shoot something? Shoot me, but you leave her alone." The elephant's trunk swung toward him briefly. Not a threat, a check. "Stay back. I've got this." Then she took 3 deliberate steps forward, toward the armed men. The poacher with the raised rifle faltered. Elephants were worth money dead, but elephants were also 2 tons of rage that could crush a human in seconds. And this elephant was clearly protecting the man behind her, which meant shooting her would require getting past her, which meant dying. The poacher lowered his rifle. "This isn't worth it," he muttered. The 4 men backed away, slowly at first, then faster. Then they ran. The elephant didn't chase. She stood her ground until they disappeared into the bush. Then, and only then, did she turn to face Daniel. For a long moment, they looked at each other. Daniel's hands were shaking. Adrenaline, fear. disbelief. "You came back," he whispered. The elephant's trunk extended slowly, gently touched his shoulder. The same gesture Daniel had used 3 months ago when examining her leg. "I remember you. I know what you did." Daniel reached up and touched her trunk. "Thank you," he said, his voice breaking. "You saved my life." The elephant made a low rumbling sound, subsonic, felt more than heard. Then she turned her head toward the dying bull elephant still lying by the waterhole. Daniel followed her gaze. The bull was still breathing, barely. The tusks were partially removed, horrific, brutal, but not complete. If Daniel acted now, if he could stop the bleeding, sedate the pain, call for emergency airlift. He looked at the elephant. She was looking back at him. "Can you help him?" "I'll try," Daniel said. He ran to his vehicle, grabbed his medical kit and radio. "Base, I need emergency airlift at my location. Adult bull elephant, gunshot wounds, partial tusk removal, critical condition." "Copy. Helicopter ETA 30 minutes. Daniel ran to the bull and began working. The elephant, his elephant, stood watch nearby, guarding both of them now. The bull survived. Barely, but he survived. The helicopter arrived, the team stabilized him, they airlifted him to the sanctuary for surgery. Daniel rode in the helicopter, hands still covered in the bull's blood, watching the landscape shrink below. The female elephant stood in the clearing, watching the helicopter rise. When Daniel landed at the sanctuary, Dr. Sarah Kimani met him at the helipad. "Daniel, what were you thinking? You went toward armed poachers alone." "I wasn't thinking. You could have died." "I know. The elephant saved me. I know that too." Sarah studied his face. "You're not telling me everything." Daniel looked at his hands. 3 months ago, I treated that elephant. Abscess on her front leg. She let me drain it, clean it, bandage it. No sedation, just trust. And today? Today, she remembered. She put herself between me and 4 men with rifles. She protected me. Sarah was quiet for a moment. "That's not possible." "I know. Elephants are intelligent, but tactical protection of a specific human based on a prior positive interaction." "Sarah, I'm telling you what I saw." "Then we need to document this. This could change our understanding of elephant cognition, memory, and social reciprocity." Daniel nodded slowly. "But first, I need to find her, make sure she's okay. Check that leg." "You want to go back out there? Today? After what just happened?" "She came when I needed her. Now I need to make sure she's safe." Daniel found her 2 days later, back with her herd. 23 elephants, including 6 juveniles and 2 calves. The matriarch, an older female with broken tusks, assessed Daniel's vehicle with suspicion. But the young female with the bandaged leg stepped forward, walked straight to Daniel's door, and waited. Daniel stepped out slowly. The matriarch's ears spread, trunk raised, warning. But the young female made a rumbling sound. The matriarch relaxed. Not completely, but enough. "He's okay. I know him." Daniel approached the young female and knelt beside her leg. "Let me check that bandage." She lifted her leg slightly. Daniel unwrapped the filthy bandages. The wound was healed, completely. No infection, no swelling. Just a clean scar where the abscess had been. "You did good, Mama," Daniel said quietly. "You took care of it." He wrapped the leg in fresh bandages anyway, not because she needed them, but because it felt important to complete the circle. When he finished, the elephant did something Daniel would never forget. She touched her trunk to the center of his chest, right over his heart, and held it there for 3 long seconds. "We're even now, but I won't forget." Then she turned and walked back to her herd. The matriarch watched Daniel for a moment longer. Then she made a low sound, and the entire herd began to move. Daniel stood there until they disappeared over the ridge. 2 weeks later, Daniel received a call that made his blood run cold. "Daniel, we have a problem. The poachers you encountered, they've been identified. 3 of them were arrested, but the 4th, he's still out there, and we have intelligence that he's asking questions." "What kind of questions?" "About you, where you work, where you patrol, what vehicle you drive." Daniel felt ice spread through his chest. "He's coming back." "We don't know that for certain, but we're taking it seriously. Rangers are increasing patrols in your sector. We've assigned you an armed escort for all field work." "For how long?" "Until we find him." Daniel knew what that meant. This man had lost his freedom, his partners, and a fortune in ivory because of Daniel's intervention, and he blamed Daniel for all of it. 2 weeks passed in tense alertness. Daniel continued his work, but now with 2 armed rangers in a second vehicle, always within sight. The poacher didn't show, but Daniel felt him out there, watching, waiting. It happened on a Tuesday. Daniel was examining a young bull with a spear wound near the Kimana boundary, different location but same general area as the first incident. His ranger escort was 50 meters away, checking a different animal. That's when Daniel heard the safety click off. He turned slowly. The 4th poacher, standing 10 feet away, rifle raised. "You cost me everything," the man said in Swahili. "My brothers are in jail. The ivory is gone. My family has nothing." "Poaching is illegal," Daniel said, voice steady despite his hammering heart. "You made that choice, and you made yours." The rifle centered on Daniel's chest. Daniel had nowhere to go, no cover, no escape. This was it. But then he heard it again, the trumpet. The poacher's eyes widened. The elephant crashed through the bush like a tank, the same female, the same protector. She'd been nearby with her herd. She'd heard the voices, the threat, and she'd come. Again. The poacher spun and fired. The shot went wide, panic, not aim. The elephant didn't slow. She hit him with her trunk, not full force, not killing, but enough to send him flying 15 feet. The rifle clattered away. The rangers arrived seconds later, weapons drawn. The poacher lay on the ground, groaning, ribs broken but alive. And the elephant stood between him and Daniel once more. After the rangers took the poacher away, Daniel sat on the ground for a long time. The elephant remained nearby, her herd visible in the distance, but waiting. "Why?" Daniel asked. "Why do you keep coming back?" The elephant's trunk touched his shoulder again. Daniel understood then. She didn't come back because she owed him. She came back because she chose to. Because she'd learned something from their first encounter that changed her understanding of humans. Not all of them caused harm. Some helped. Some could be trusted. And when that specific human was in danger, she made a choice to intervene. Not from obligation, from recognition. "We're connected now," Daniel said quietly. "Aren't we?" The elephant made that low rumble. Then she turned and walked back to her herd. Daniel watched her go, this time with different emotions. Not gratitude, not wonder. Responsibility. She had protected him twice. She had risked herself twice. And now Daniel had to make a choice. Keep working in the field, knowing she might come again if he was threatened, potentially putting her in danger. Or find a different way to serve. 6 months later, Daniel accepted a position as Director of Elephant Conservation Strategy for the Kenya Wildlife Service. Office work mostly, policy, training, coordination. Less field time, more impact. It wasn't what he'd planned, but it was the right choice. Because the elephant who had saved him twice deserved to live her life without being pulled into human conflicts. She'd done enough. Daniel still visited her herd sometimes, from a distance, just to check. And every time she'd lift her trunk in acknowledgement. "I see you. I remember." but she stayed with her family, as she should. Some debts are never fully repaid. Some connections change the course of your entire life. And some choices, the hardest ones, are about protecting the ones who protected you by stepping back so they can be free.